tons of rigid federal requirements. Like you have, Section 508 compliance, you have a whole host of them. On the other hand, there's just the level of approvals that one has to go through, right? So anything that's being released to the general public, especially on like a national federal level that has a high level of visibility, is going to have a whole lot of approvals in there. And every time you go through those approvals, there is the chance of there being significant changes and going back to the drawing board. And so after you've made significant changes or iterations, potentially a half dozen times, that certainly does take the fun out of it. But not everything can be fun, and that's okay. But a lot of this can also be avoided with good, stakeholder relationships and project scheduling.
Have you ever wondered what it takes to pivot a successful 11-year career in creative fields into the high-stakes world of strategic project management? Our guest today is the perfect case study. We are speaking with Dave Johnson, a leader who has mastered the art of pairing communication principles with PM disciplines to transform creative ideas into strategic, scalable outputs. Dave didn't just manage projects, he managed a multi-million-dollar portfolio of digital initiatives for the National Weather Services, a space where scope creep isn't about inconvenience. It can be a matter of public safety. Today, we will dive deep into his pivot story, the rigorous risk management required in the federal space, and the moment he realized he was already a project manager and why he chose to strategically upskill his career with certifications in AI. Get ready for a smart class in career transformation and managing mission-critical projects. So let's dive right into it. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Hi, Prachi. Very happy to be here. Thank you for the nice introduction.
Thank you. So, Dave, tell us something about yourself, about your background, from where you started. I see your LinkedIn profile and I see you started your career from customer service representative back in 2005 with a financial company. So if you could share a little bit about your background and your journey.
Sure. I certainly had a very non-traditional background. When I was much younger, my first couple of jobs were retail, working my way up to managing a retail store. I'm not sure if I learned any project management from that back then, maybe something. I pivoted over to my first kind of like white collar 40-hour week office job at the Association for Financial Professionals, where I started as a customer service representative, basically the very bottom rung on the ladder of the company. But I'd kind of in the background, just for my own personal interest, had been studying website development. And so I was promoted 9 months later to their junior web person. And then I kind of slowly rose up the ranks a bit to eventually becoming the senior web person, and also doing things like I produced I think well over 100 videos and I think over 200 episodes of a podcast just like this one. So it's actually been a while since I've been back in the podcast space. So happy to be doing this. And yeah, that's how I got started. And from there, I went over to the federal space, and I've worked with the Department of Energy, National Weather Service, the National Institutes of Health, NIH. And now I have my own business, which is also back in the federal contracting space, as well as helping out nonprofits and others. But yeah, that's my quick
Okay, that's great. Good to know that you have the background of podcast. So I will take a few tips from you.
I could probably learn from you.
All right. So we will be talking about your company later on in the episode. But before that, could you walk us through the moment you decided to pivot from the digital media specialist to a formal project manager? Was this a planned move, or was it a realization that you had already been managing the multi-million-dollar projects for years and now you were just, giving that work a title?
This is actually a good story. It was kind of an accident. So I had been, like most professionals, I had been involved in coordinating and managing projects for quite some time. When I was at the Association for Financial Professionals, or AFP, I helped out with a lot of really big project management on some major web redesigns. We did a lot of those, not a lot, but recall at least 3 major enterprise-wide web designs over the years. And so I had a lot of experience from that, and then other smaller projects. But it's funny, I always thought, even though I had done that, I never really considered myself a project manager. And I always kind of looked at the title of project manager or the PMP certification that seemed kind of intimidating to me. I looked at it like, wow, that's way over my head, or oh no, I could never do that. It seemed like, like really, really serious stuff. The way I found myself into the profession was it was actually a complete accident. So I started as in digital media as a multimedia specialist, and doing everything from website design to video to all that fun techie stuff. And I had applied to a job for a multimedia specialist position, and I'm in the interview, and about maybe 20 minutes in the interview, I'm like, okay, these questions don't sound like the job I applied for. Can and I still can't believe I did this. I said, I stopped the interview. I'm like, can I stop you for 1 second and just ask what position am I actually applying for here? Which, that at that point, I mean, usually you do that. You can, at least you think, okay, I'm kissing this goodbye. And he says, oh, this is for the project manager position. And I mean, I think what had happened is I did list the stuff I had done in project management on my resume. And so they had moved me into that pile. And I guess they didn't tell me that on the back end. But yeah, so I was like, okay, I have done some project management and everything he had described in the position before. I'm like, everything that you described there seems like something I could do very well. I mean, it was project management in the communication space, and at AFP, I'd been in the communication space. So it seemed completely to match. And miraculously, I got that job. So that was the first time I had the official title of project manager. And I still remember my first day, I was so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, can I really do this? Like this, it just seems so serious, so intimidating. And I guess having that mindset of, no, not overconfidence, like, can I handle this? That I guess that set me up for success, because that made sure I double checked every single thing I did. I made sure to build in so much time for all of my projects so I would never miss a deadline and all this stuff. And I ended up, I guess, becoming somewhat successful at it. And it doesn't seem as intimidating now looking back, but yeah, I'm really glad that happened, because otherwise I don't know if I would have stepped into that space on my own volition. So yeah, that's my funny story for that.
That's interesting. Like, I know a few people who were accidental project managers, but what's common between all of you is you all have a leadership quality, and you all are very much organized in your thoughts, and you like to organize things and make it achieve. And the vision, have the clarity of the vision, and you make that achieve. That's an interesting story. I haven't heard that before, that in the interview you have stopped the interviewee and asked, what am I interviewing for? That's super interesting.
I didn't know those things happened, and maybe they probably don't very often. So yeah.
So, what was your primary role in overseeing National Weather Service's managing portfolio of digital projects? Like, that's a critical portfolio. And what was the nature of challenge in integrating federal IT systems with the modern user-friendly front-end experience?
Sure. So that's kind of a two-part question. Let me talk about what my role was there first, because that in and of itself is pretty complicated and nuanced. And then I'll speak to what I can about the second part. So my role at the National Weather Service, which I worked at as an employee of two different contracting companies over the course of 7 years, first for Cinerin and then for Itegrity, who is a client of mine now, fantastic company. They were prime contractors for the federal government. And so my project management title was kind of twofold. One, I was there to manage their government contract. And what that means is manage the staff on the contract. And that is a kind of project in and of itself. It's not exactly what you think of when you think of a traditional project, but that was part A. I was managing the staff for their prime contract and making sure that all ran smoothly. The other half of that is that I was also managing a lot of projects that for the federal client, for the National Weather Service, things like website redesigns or safety campaigns. And in which I was in most situations there, I was the project lead overseeing a staff that, now when I say overseeing, on these federal driven projects, these people weren't reporting to me, but that's typical for project managers. Project team doesn't necessarily report to you, but yeah, it was very interesting, because here I am, I'm overseeing a project team of maybe like, a dozen people. majority of which are are federal employees, and I'm a contractor. It's kind of interesting dynamics there. Yeah, that was the other thing where I was managing the prime contract for my company and the contract staff, in which I was physically the contract staff's boss, and then managing these whole suite of one-off projects where I was basically the project lead for a team of federal employees with a handful of contractors thrown in it. I hope that made sense. Let me know if you have any if you need any clarification about any of that. I know it took me a while to understand it.
Yeah, it's kind of a complicated or complex structure which you followed because you were a contractor but still managing the project. And a lot of projects, in fact, those are huge in itself. Actually, I would say it's portfolio, not a project like
Yeah,
that.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
So, how did you balance the need for creative, innovative digital work with the necessity of getting the approvals under the rigid federal compliance requirements?
So yeah, besides, I mean, yeah. So that's the question of the day, right? And that's something I try and challenge myself with all the time. Here is I do thrive on creative work, even though I do a lot of just technical project management. I love to have time for creative work myself. If I can give myself creative projects, I'll do them. I still take the time to make videos or graphics when I can. I really love that part of it. And if that's a deliverable on my project, I know I can count on myself to get it done on time, and so I like that too. But I the challenge with this is, I mean, so on one hand, yes, there's tons of rigid federal requirements, like you have Section 508 compliance, you have a whole host of them. On the other hand, there's just the level of approvals that one has to go through, right? So anything that's being released to the federal pub to the national public on a sorry, anything that's being released to the general public, especially on like a national federal level that has a high level of visibility, is going to have a whole lot of approvals in there. And every time you go through those approvals, there is the chance of there being significant changes and going back to the drawing board. And so after you've made significant changes or iterations, potentially a half dozen times, that certainly does take the fun out of it. But not everything can be fun, and that's okay. But a lot of this stuff can also be avoided with good, stakeholder relationships and project scheduling, building things, giving yourself the time to anticipate, okay, if there are, 6 rounds of changes requested by the client, then that doesn't derail the project. And guess what? If there's only one change or no changes, then you've just delivered something well ahead of schedule, and that just frees up things for all the other things in your portfolio that you're working on. So yeah, to answer your question, the biggest thing to do that, yes, managing the schedule and managing those stakeholder relations. That is the number one. The stakeholder relations is the number one.
Right. In any project, in fact, I would say stakeholder management is one of the key parts of project management. One is stakeholder management, and another one is communication. I can't emphasize more on communication.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I even to this day, I still kind of merge those two into my head, but because it is stakeholder management is communications management, at least to me. But
Yeah.
yes,
So these are some high stake projects, right? So when you are dealing with real time data that feeds an anticipated continuing, like, so these are like critical projects, right? How do you manage the scope creep when unforeseen high stake situation threatens, right? To these projects.
working with the National Weather Service and being involved in at least some communication support for very high level things like the landfall and hurricanes and things like that. I've worked shifts to midnight. I'm dealing with the aspects related to that. The thing is, though, those for the most part only delay, like they basically only interrupt things by a couple of days. So I can't say it's ever really been a huge problem there. But again, the underlying philosophy that I bring to all my projects is I just I build in anticipated delays into the schedule. I give myself due dates way ahead of when, and my team due dates way ahead of when the actual drop dead deadline is, because there's a good chance that there will be some kind of delay of something, even if it's not necessarily a landfalling hurricane. It could be a client issue, or a critical team member is out sick, or there's some other dependency from some other related project that affects it, and just building in that time so that if there so that assuming that assuming that the something will go wrong, and having it so that doesn't mess up your project or your schedule.
Yeah, you might not have specific example for that, but I'm sure you have done an intense risk management and risk mitigation planning sessions with your team.
Yeah, I mean, it's just built into everything. It's built into everything. We just the same underlying set of assumptions. But yeah,
Okay. I saw on your LinkedIn that after you managed these multi-million dollar projects, you got your PMP certification. So, what measurable difference did it obtain after getting the PMP certification effectiveness?
that's a good question. I'm sure. I think it probably did make me a little bit more effective. I got to be honest. The biggest change that knew from then is knowing all the official project management terminology. Like, I mean, I had done, I you know, I'd built out tons of WBS structures before, but I didn't know the name of that was until I took the time to like sit down and study for the PMP. So that's the one I still remember to right now, and it certainly helped me it helped me get a better job as well. And the most important thing was, I can say, well, I've managed this, I've managed that, but anyone can say anything. Actually, having the certification kind of proves, at the very least, I've taken the time to study for the exam, pass the exam, and it just adds like kind of just like that extra level of proof. So that was the biggest value to myself. But I also actually I actually really enjoyed like studying for it. I kind of, just turned it into kind of just I guess a game, like my own little mini project with myself. Okay, spend X number of hours on these study guides, that study guides over a certain amount of time, and when I pass it, yeah, that felt really good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know the feeling of passing the exam. I just cleared my PMP and I was like, oh my God, now it makes so much sense. I used to manage projects, but when you get to know the jargon and when you're doing, you know that, oh, okay, I'm doing WPS or I'm planning for this thing or risk mitigation planning or whatever you are doing, it makes you can connect the dots, right? What you're doing. It's quite clear in your mind what you are going to do. Yeah. All
And
right. So,
congratulations, Prachi, for you earning certification this year.
thank you, Dave. So coming to the next question, your interest has always been about perceiving, consuming, and acting on the information. So, how do you see that core interest connecting with and underpinning the discipline of project management?
I think the fact that that was a core interest of mine was a huge help, and certainly. So, I mean, everything in a project is information. Everything is, and perceiving information. I mean, okay, perceiving what the stakeholder wants, depending which might be what they say. It might be something different. There might be other kind of nuances that are kind of beneath the surface, but being able to understand that, and then of course, the whole point of a project is turning information into coordinated action. I wish I had something more profound to say to that, but I do feel that that has been a really big help. The fact that I'm so interested in that, I think, is, I guess, maybe why I ended up doing better in this role than I may have initially thought what, before I stepped into it. But because all projects are information, and managing that information and turning that information into action.
Ooh, very cool. Since we are talking about certification, I also see you recently pursued your AI certification for a project manager, especially one coming from a non technical media background, having your own company. What compelled you to make that investment pursuing AI certification, and what ways it helping you in your company or business?
Great question. So the reason wanted to know more about the reason I pursued it was because, I mean, obviously AI is like the number one thing in a lot of businesses right now, and I try to stay up to date with technology. I certainly load the day when I fall behind on modern tech. And while I'm certainly not the most advanced person out there with that, I do try and stay up to date. I just wanted to make sure I was up to date on that. And I have to admit that that certification I took, it was a really good one. It was from the University of Maryland Robert Smith School of Business. For anyone that doesn't know much about AI, I recommend it. Well, it was maybe a little bit more beginner level than I had hoped for, which I guess made me feel really good, right? I'm like, oh, I know all this. This is so easy. That inflates my ego. That makes I'm like, okay, maybe I do know all this stuff. So that was why I took it, and I guess taking that, I made me realize, okay, maybe I still am up to date with all this stuff. As far as as to how it's helped me in my business, the
So
jury.
before that, tell us
Sorry.
about your business. What
Oh
does
yeah,
Lyft do? And then maybe how do you integrate AI and your knowledge to your
sure.
company? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So my business is Dawn Lift Digital. It's a very new business. I started it just last year, and what it's basically all of my skill sets just kind of wrapped up into a business. At the moment, it is a one man business with just myself. Again, I just started 6 months ago. We will see if that grows or not over the next year. I have some things in the works, but I'm also very happy with where I am right now at the moment too. So what I do is I provide basically, how do I say this? What do I say on my LinkedIn? Integrated communications, multimedia, and digital strategy for mission-driven organizations. And so that basically is all the things I've talked about throughout our chats. Everything from building websites to making videos, to doing graphics. And actually, one other important part of this that I don't think we touched on is communication strategy in general. Like, what do you say and how do you say it? And this is something that, of course, project managers deal with, and communications management and stakeholder management. And it's a similar thing, just kind of on a much broader scale. Communicating to the general public or communicating to targeted audiences. What's the best way to communicate with them? What's the best format? What's the best thing to say? What's the best cadence of communications? So wrapping all those things into one, the strategy for that on digital platforms with digital content and multimedia, that's basically what my business provides. And I targeted towards mission driven organizations for two reasons. One, because I have a lot of experience in that, so I can speak to it with a level of authority. And two, because I think it's, to be completely frank, I think it's a little bit more of a competitive niche than just saying, hey, I can do digital marketing for whatever company, just like, a million other companies out there. So that's kind of the niche I have for myself. Again, my business is 6 months old. I'm still kind of navigating my way through, so I might refine that as I go on. I've had a good amount of success so far. I have two clients right now, kind of two and a half. I've been working with this one nonprofit, Earth Echo International. They do a lot of really great work in the ocean conservancy space. I've been advising them on their digital strategy and social media management. And then number two is I am actually back working with the National Weather Service as working with the employer I used to work with, Integrity. I am now back with them, except my company is a subcontractor on their contract. So I'm really happy about that. I really love working with that team. The folks at the National Weather Service are really, really great. And so I'm happy to be back working with them. So that's the two things that's basically eating up all my time right now. I'd say at work maybe like just on client work 50 hours a week. Compared to some people, that's not too bad. You have everyone doing the 996 schedule now, so it could be worse. I do need to have some time. I do need also to build in some time for building out my business. But yeah, so that's what I do, and how AI helps. The jury is still out on that. So like a lot of other people, I use AI as a copy editor. Don't What I actually don't do for the most part, I don't actually use Gen AI for content creation. Once in a while, if I have like writer's block, sure, I'll put something in there. But for the most part, I don't use it for that, just because, for the sole reason that, effective communications with the public, you want people to connect with what you're saying. And having it come from your actual voice, I think is very important. That being said, everything I write, I absolutely run it through AI as a copy editor. Okay, where are the typos? Where's the grammar? Stuff that's beyond what just spell check can pick up. And then sometimes it'll come up with like a much more poignant way to say it than I thought of. And like once in a while, I'll take those suggestions too. I'm sure a lot of people use it for that, right? That's pretty basic stuff. I didn't need to get a certification to learn that. Where I would like to use it, but I got to be frank, I don't know if it's quite there yet, is the whole digital assistant thing. But there is a lot of things I would love to automate, and I think the tech is very, very close. I think it's only a matter of time before it comes into that. So where you can have, so I'm like, okay, and actually, in a lot of this does actually exist in some cases, but just hey, set up my meetings, generate my invoices, send my invoices out, do this and that, communicate with the clients. But I'm at the point where I'm not comfortable. Well, I also, and this is, gosh, this is such a complicated topic. I do think it's very important that there's always a human in the loop. I think what's going to happen is, as if my business hopefully scales, which will happen in parallel the with AI tech continuing to get better and better, I think I would be shocked if there's not opportunities to have certain parts of my business completely automated. But we will see. We will see. I don't think it's there yet, and I need to make sure I'm providing value for myself, because otherwise, why would somebody come to me when they can just go get the same AI, right? So the jury's still out on that. But it's an absolutely fascinating topic, and it's something I'm paying very close attention to.
Yeah, AI is there to assist you, but it can't replace what humans can achieve, right? The human touch, the emotional intelligence, it can't do it yet. But yes, for mundane tasks, yes, absolutely. I use that all the time. I would love to get things automated so that I have time to do some productive work. That's completely agreeable. And I will post your details of your company, your LinkedIn, in my description section below. And whoever is looking for creative content, you know whom to reach out to now. So feel free to reach out to David. Before we close out, I just wanted to ask you the final piece of advice you will, if you have to give, if you had to distill your 11 plus years of experience into one actionable piece of advice.
Yeah, so I do have something specific in mind for that. I'm not sure if it's not necessarily project management related, but the most important thing I think anybody can do that will drive anything else they do is literally take care of yourself, exercise, eat well, get a lot of sleep, take time to unplug from the computer. I have my best ideas when I'm out taking a daily walk. Like that's when my body gives time to kind of like, my mind gives time to kind of like sift through what my mind's been consuming throughout the day. And that anyone that wants to better themselves that's not doing that already, if you do that, I guarantee you will see improvements in every aspect of everything you work on. Other than that, obviously work hard, take time to focus. If you have this, you asked for one, I'll give you a couple others. That's the number one.
That's good.
They'll give you the more work related ones. Here's a good one. I don't know about for anyone that's watching, but if you're like most people I know, and even myself sometimes, as you go throughout the day, throughout your work day, you will see more and more and more tabs on your browsers. If you have enough tabs on your browser that you cannot read the titles of those tabs, it's time to close that. It's time to just close the entire thing and start back up from scratch. It's having less things for your mind to like even think is there and overwhelm it will give more space to focus. So yeah, that, and just again, on a similar note, giving yourself time for anything that you work on, whether it's a project, whether it's creative work, whether anything, block out time in your calendar just for focus time where you don't look at your email, where you turn off your notifications and just give yourself time and space to work through it. Those little things, just implementing that to have, I think, the exponential kind of gain over time.
Yes,
Yeah.
it can go a long way rather than just completing in one sprint. I think it's for a long term benefit. Yes, work life balance or
So important.
mindfulness. Yeah.
Yes, work-life balance. There's gotta be some. And if you try, and I am somebody that I pride myself on how hard I can work. And every time I don't give myself enough balance, it catches up, and then I get burnt out. And then my work product and my output is worse, and it's worse than it would have been if I'd given myself time and given myself space. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important.
Yep, absolutely. That was an incredible, insightful conversation, Dave. We have covered so much ground, from realization that his decade in digital media prepared him perfectly for a PM career, to the intense complexity of integrating federal IT systems while managing a crisis like hurricanes and unforeseen situations. Dave showed us the vital role of the PMP discipline in his high stake environment. and why strategic upskilling, like pursuing AI certification, is now non negotiable for competitive project management. Thank you, Dave, for sharing your experience and for managing projects where the stakes were so high, and for giving us a glimpse into how Dawnlift Digital is leveraging these advanced strategies or will be implementing the AI things. And if you are a mid career professional thinking about pivoting into project management, dealing complex risk mitigation, I hope this episode gave you the actionable insights you need to hear. You can find, as I said, you can find Dave's LinkedIn profile and Dawnlift's digital in the description section below. Join us next time as we explore another great career journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prachi. That was a really great conversation. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I'm honored to be a guest on the show. And yeah, that was really great.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.